All right, we got our special guest, regular contributor, Melissa Gonzalez, joining us all the way from the East Coast of the beautiful state of New Jersey. Seriously, it's beautiful. I visited it. I can't wait to go back one day. Melissa, you there with us?
I am here. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, but I understand
Hello?
you are a lot better than the majority of us. I understand, Melissa, you've got so much going on in your world of retail, especially when it comes to back to school. What can you share with us?
Well, we are kicking it off. I mean, actually, the New York, New Jersey area, we don't officially go back to school till after Labor Day. So it is time to start preparing. And so we're looking at what is that going to mean for retail. But I'm starting to look through my Facebook feed. I see some people already starting school, some schools in person, not just virtual. But really what we're thinking about is what the new mix is going to really mean for brands and retailers. With what I think the majority of students will be is virtual.
Well, and I'm glad you're preparing for, I mean, that's worst case scenario, right? I yesterday had a few guests on and I says, are you guys planning for just like now or the future? And they're like, well, we're planning for like anywhere from a year to 2 years to 3 years. Worst case scenario. And I think everything you're about to share with us is quite pivotal to retailers out there. And I know we're talking about back to school, but I got some questions just about the environment that we live in right now. But first, let's talk about the back to school situation. What are we seeing the trends start to be, Melissa?
A mix, you're seeing some schools with optionality. You either choose 5 days of school in person or you choose 5 days virtual, or you see a few days a week in person, and then they're creating a pod system. But most people are expecting schools to close down, even if they open. So I think as you're preparing, for the year ahead, for the semester ahead, there's got to be a mix. You're going to see, Best Buy is probably going to do really well with iPad sales and laptop sales and all the at-home consumer electronic needs for those who didn't buy them when we were at home from March to June are making those investments now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm not going to lie. We went to Target the other day. It was sometime last week. All the back to school stuff were completely there and stocked up. But I had this moment and this thought. I'm like, normally when school's like ready to go in, it's like a feverish, it's all gone. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think a good majority of those products are going to stay on the shelves. Am I wrong?
I think a few things are going to get hurt. I think apparel is going to still get hurt. Look, if your kid's 5 and 4 and whatever, they grow every year, you got to buy them clothes regardless. But, there's not going to be that big rush of like, I have to get my new outfit for the first day and, that whole mentality. So I think that category is going to hurt. But I do think, like I mentioned, consumer electronics, people might need those upgrades. That extra old generation iPad might not cut it anymore for all the Zoom classes that have to happen, or depending on the year of the child, for younger children, you might need to actually invest in more arts and crafts kinds of things. Like, just think of all the things the schools had to invest in for the classroom, and if you're doing that at home. So I think it's just a shift of spend, really.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you're bringing it up. I'm going to go back quite a ways to our very first time we ever met. And you have this very important book, which I think right now people really need to read. And at the time, it was a really cool new idea and it took off and you were able to kind of like put together the book. And I'm just going to throw this out right now. The name of the book, would you like to share that with us?
The pop-up paradigm, how brands build a human connection in the digital age.
Yeah, that needs to be revised now that we have COVID-19. Here's why I'm going to say this right now, because this is basically what we're starting to see happen. And correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, the only businesses that are able to stay alive in this current situation that we find ourselves in are those that are willing to what? Do a pop-up experience and or combine efforts, because let's face it, retail is not cheap, especially space. And what we're starting to see, I don't know about you guys on the East Coast, but we're seeing stores that have been forever around suddenly shutter their doors. Can you make any recommendations to the average business owner that has a retail space, trying to survive for however long we're going to have to be during this whole pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely seeing on the East Coast, and it's sad. New York City doesn't have the heartbeat that it used to have, and you definitely, the streets are quiet, and there's a lot of boarded up windows. F&B probably hurt the worst. You don't get that commuter traffic for breakfast and lunch and the tourists. But yeah, pop-up's definitely a strategy that you're seeing come to the forefront, and there's always been a lot of reasons why people did pop-ups, but one of the things you're seeing is brands are saying, I don't need to sign these long-term leases. There's some cities it doesn't make sense for me to be there year-round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out when I need to be there, and I'm going to do a pop-up to do that. And pop-ups are taking all sorts of forms. They're going to take the form of mobile pop-up. They're going to, pop in. I've seen restaurants that have open storefronts dedicate a portion of their place to a coffee pop-up, or maybe accessory pop-up. I think that some of these, and I think that will happen for back to school, where maybe brands like a Staples or another office supply company might be put bundles together to help solve people's problems, and then you show up. And the other thing that we're seeing on the East Coast, and it's a little different than you guys, is you're seeing, you saw a big move into urbanization, right? People didn't want to get the big house and deal with that and they would live in the city. And now you're seeing the opposite, and you're seeing suburbanization and people turning in their keys to their apartment and saying, you know what, this is not for me. I'm going to go get a house. So where retailers were chasing, how do I sign a long-term lease in a urban environment? They're now saying, how do I pop up and show up in these suburban areas now, if that's where my demographic's going?
I'll be honest, I didn't even think about that. Here in Los Angeles, obviously we have a very robust fashion district. You've got you got the fashion district, you got the food distribution areas, you got a lot of shopping, a lot of ability there. And LA is a little bit of a mix. It's not as heavily populated as New York, in a very dense area with all the buildings that you have. But it's interesting that you say that, because what I'm starting to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, it might be different on the East Coast. What I'm starting to see is a drying up of customers. Even though there are mobile apps, mobile ways to get things, some of these businesses still are not surviving. I know in Chinatown, I have this long-time favorite place. I've always conducted businesses at this place. It was called Plum Tree Inn. And they tried to crowdfund money just to stay open, but they had to close their doors. Are you seeing any leasing options that are starting to formulate to be able to make it optional for businesses to stay in? Because here's what I foresee. I see a huge amount of space all of a sudden becoming vacant through the years. And if this pandemic lasts as long as I think it's going to last, there's going to be these empty spaces. Now, who pays the bill for that?
I mean, that's definitely a big conversation. And, real estate's got a lot to deal with right now. In the mall environments, the leasing teams are actively working to figure out, okay, who could backfill some of these spaces. You're already seeing creative leases and kind of shared economy and shared spaces. So I think that the pop-up model will be a solve for that, where, I take a lease 12 months a year, and your brand makes sense there in the spring, and your brand makes sense there in the fall, and you sell bathing suits, you take summer, and people kind of share the commitment of the lease in a strategic way, where the seasons make the most sense for their company.
You know what? If that works, all the power to them. I just know in certain areas you're allowed to go in, and other restaurant establishments, you have to be on the outside. I just talked a little bit earlier how I saw a LinkedIn post about we have a very big location here. It's called Irvine Spectrum. Lots of shops, lots of amazing stuff. But you go every other shop, it's pretty much closed. And then the question was, especially in the space of food, you have companies like Yard House, which have the space and the leased area for 180 people that they could normally fit in at any given time. Now they're relegated to only 75 people. You could only generate so much cash at a time. Are you making recommendations to
Right.
retailers out there to maybe either economize or scale online or digital? I don't know how you do that with Yard House, but other than delivery orders.
We had the exact conversation on a webinar yesterday. So yes, it's because you have to you got to rethink the model, right? It's not the same assumptions of, okay, I'm going to drive X amount of foot traffic and I'm going to convert that foot traffic and I'm going to make sales, right? So what we're working through is, okay, how do you do more in a smaller footprint, have more impact per square foot, and yes, really integrate technology so you're leveraging all channels. Maybe you bring in an influencer and they do live stream shopping from the store, so you're extending that reach across all their followers, but you're using the physical space as a canvas, as the backdrop. He or she comes in, they put on outfits for you, you see how it fits. You kind of get over that touch feel gap without having to go in to do it. And so it's really starting to get more and more creative of integrating technology so that the consumer can be fluid with you, and you can leverage your physical assets.
Well, look, Brenda and I went shopping for a graduation gift for a family member of Brenda's. And we went to several shops. It was an outlet. It's called the, I can't remember, the Citadel outlets. And off the 5 freeway, when you come here, it's amazing. It's outdoor. It's like an outdoor mall. Very cool, very amazing. However, having to wait in line to enter a store for like a 25-minute wait just to enter a store which has handbags, as a dude, I'm like, are you kidding me? And she's like, trust me, she's going to love it. I go, okay, I guess so. But is that putting a dampener on the retail space? And if so, what can people do to make it more like a VIP experience?
Yeah, exactly. I think as you have limited capacity, it's going to happen. I personally am amazed when I see those lines and I'm like, wow, people really want to go and interact with this brand. They'll stand up. But if you make that line part of an experience, then I think it could work. There's a lot of queuing systems that are out there. They're really expensive, inexpensive apps that you could, go on the website, book an appointment time, or show up and give us your phone number. We'll text you 5 minutes before it's time for you to enter. So there's a lot of ways that you can add efficiency that way, and the consumer then can go to another location and come back. But I would also do something like collaborate with a pop-up ice cream truck or a pop-up coffee shop. So while I'm waiting online, I can get an ice cream, or I could do something
Smart.
like that.
Yeah.
While I'm waiting, and that adds to my experience.
I love that. I love that you're thinking outside the box, and that's why I love to have you on the show, because we always we start thinking and then we formulate stuff. And okay, let me throw something else at you. I would venture to say those that are willing to wait in line are about to buy something. I highly doubt. I'll give you another example. I went to Rancho Cucamonga recently to treat myself to a little bit of Lucille's. I love Lucille's. They have a tri-tip, amazing tri-tip. Some people are like, I cook better tri-tip. I say, well, let me see if it's good. But at the same time, I walked into several shops and I walked out because unfortunately, there's nobody waiting in line. Is there anything that people can do if they're a retailer space to, again, reach out to the masses and do so? And I think it goes back to your influencer idea. I would love to see, personally, influencers shop online, but then have a click to order as they're featuring it. Is that an option, or do you have other ideas?
Oh, no, for sure. You're seeing much more of that too, like the shop and video. And I think consumers are getting more and more comfortable with it. And look, the technology is not new. It's been there. I've seen clickable videos for years, but the consumers weren't there. And what's happening is, this pandemic is driving innovation, because necessity drives innovation. And so you'll be more adaptable in that sense. So absolutely. And look, even if you're closed and stuff too, what I would do is your windows, your storefront windows, that is your canvas. So how are you going to use that in a more interactive way? QR codes are finally seeing the day. Even if your store is closed, have some beautiful display in the window, a QR code to learn more, and then have that take somebody to a landing page. Right? It's so easy now to actually learn more about your consumers and get their contact information and allow them to learn more without touching than ever before. So it's really about being creative. And then the tools, there's a lot of tools out there that are really accessible now.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much, Melissa. I always wanted to say I appreciate your family as well. I've been catching up on some of your family fun over there, staying safe while at the same time having family fun. Thank you for spending time with us here on the morning show. But before we let you go, we need to kind of let everybody know it's your month, if you know what I mean.
Oh, it's Leo season.
You and Brenda's, by the way. Yeah. So, yeah, everybody here at the station wants to wish you a special your month because it's Melissa's month. So everybody throw in the little gifts and or gift cards. What are you accepting? Gift cards, presents, what?
Okay. Oh, I will always take gift cards. Starbucks, Sephora, you know.
Done. I've got several.
I love this. I'm going to get
I've got several we're going to send you. Okay, no, but seriously, thank you so very much for spending time with us, Melissa. We really do love you. We appreciate you more than you know, and we thank you for breaking it down for our retail sector. I've got more questions. I know you have more answers, so I hope to have you back sooner than later, okay?
Sounds great. Great talking to you guys. Stay safe.